Namaste, this is Aditya and welcome to Shankar Martech channel. If you have to implement an e-commerce based website using microservices architecture, then how can we use AEM in a headless way in that architecture? How exactly does AEM fit into that architecture? That's what we are going to discuss in this particular video. This video will be helpful for AEM architects and leads. Let's get started with the presentation. So what's the difference between headless and headful architecture? We'll try to understand that first. Okay, so I just took this example of the banner example from one of the existing websites, which is the Dell website. Okay, so if we have to create this banner component in AEM, we just create the component, we'll give the dialog box, right? To have this eyebrow text and this title and description and this banner image. And we'll write the HTML code, sling models and all that, right? To render this banner component. This is the helpful way of doing the things, which means that we have made an assumption that we are going to render this component in HTML and in the web browser. So if we have made that assumption that we are finally going to render this component in a particular channel or in a particular device or in a browser, and based on that we do the coding, then we call it a headful architecture. Okay, and in the headless architecture, what we do is we don't assume or we don't know how this data will finally get rendered on a particular device. Okay, so we just store the text in this format. Okay, we just say field name is eyebrow text and what is the value, and title what is the value, description what is the value. If we are storing it like this in the CMS, and this data will be sent out in a JSON format through an API, and the device will ultimately consume this JSON, and device itself will decide as to how exactly this data has to be rendered on the UI. So then such an architecture is called as a headless architecture, because we are not making any assumption on what is the head or what is the presentation layer or what is the presentation layer's code. So that we are not assuming, we are just storing the pure text. Okay, so this is the headless architecture. Now, having understood that, the first thing which we need to do for any of the headless architecture is the content modeling. So what do we mean by content modeling? So we'll have to analyze the information architecture, and we need to work with the UX designers to understand what all content we want to present in various devices, right? We'll have to have a consolidated view of all the content that has to be presented in whatever format it might be. But what is the content which has to be presented? That has to be structured or outlined first, okay, in a way which we do it using the information architecture layouts, right? So like that, we'll have to create an outline first. Okay, so then based on that outline, we'll have to arrive upon what are the various different types of the content types. Okay, what could be the different types of content types? So content type is nothing but a schema in which a particular content can be represented. For example, one of the content type could be images, videos could be other content type, documents like PDFs, Word documents could be another content type, and any other assets in general, right? So which we are storing it in the TAM, because all these come under some content types. Okay, and then articles could be one of the content types, right? And articles could be subdivided into other content types. For example, it could be divided into author, right? Author could be one content type, and that author content type could be tagged to a particular article, right? So like that, we could subdivide the content types. So basically what we need to keep in our mind is what is the reusability, that we need to keep in the mind, and based on that we'll have to arrive upon the content types. Okay, it's just as simple as we define the components, right? AEM components. What is the process we follow in general to define the AEM component? So similar process we'll follow to arrive upon these content types also. So you can assume that these content types are almost equivalent to AEM components. So for example, in the articles, we might have the article headline and the article highlights and what is the author and uh, content blocks, carousels, right? So these are the different types of components which could go under the article content type or article page. So similarly, we could have the landing pages, like for example, product landing pages could be there, or if you are going into the service screen, service landing page could be there. So different types of landing pages and different types of components which are being used in the landing pages. So though all those comes under the content types. And what are the various service plans, right? There could be some extended warranties and different types of service plans, right? 1 year plan, 2 year plan, 3 year plan. Maybe you will have to pay some extra amount, and there could be some comparisons on different pricings and different plans, right? So all those could be one of the content type. And general question and answers like FAQs, those could be one content type, and menus could be one of the content type, right? In general, whatever we do in AEM, right, whatever components we generally create in AEM could be the content types. But the only difference here is instead of rendering them in like this, we'll render it like this. Okay, so we'll not create any HTML presentation format, but for the author to view what we are creating, we will render it like this in a tabular format. Okay, so we could also use the content fragments for this approach. But in my personal experience, AEM content fragments for the headless scenario did not work well. Okay, it has so many limitations, and even authoring becomes very difficult. So, from the manageability perspective, content fragments are becoming very difficult for a huge application. So what I would recommend is, as we create the components in general in AEM, we'll create the components in a similar way, and we'll create the pages and add components to it. Okay, but the only thing is, instead of rendering it like this and coding it in the HTML, we just do a tabular format like this. Even in, if you go for the content fragment approach, you would see like this only, right? What is the field label and what is the value? So, and you will be able to edit it. So in the similar way, we will give a structure like this, a component like this, and once the component dialog box they enter and save, they will get a view like this. Okay, so like this we can manage, create different components only and manage everything in AEM as is as we are doing. So with just the difference that we are not creating this layout. Okay, so this is all about the content types. Now coming to how the AEM will fit into the ultimate architecture of these microservices, and how exactly we are rendering the content in these various components into the final layout. Okay, so that we are going to see now. So this is the high level architecture. Okay, so here we have the AEM. So in AEM we are creating multiple pages, and in the pages we are adding various components, right? And all the structure is maintained here. And in AEM only, we will create multiple APIs to expose these pages, whatever we are creating, either pages or menus or anything, right? As a APIs. Okay, so we create multiple APIs. So that APIs will accept some request parameters, and based on the request, it will give the response. So what could be those request parameters? Okay, so the request parameters could be the tags, right? So we can say that we'll identify the content based on tags. So for example, if we are talking about a product landing page, now how do we identify which page to pick up in the AEM for a particular product? How do we know that? So we could do it based on the tags. That could be one approach. Or else we could be doing it based on the product ID, right? So we could come up with a architecture on which suits best. Okay, for example, if we are talking about a service landing page, so how do we identify that page? Where exactly is the location of that landing page? Okay, so it could be based on the tag, or it could be based on the page ID. So we'll have to come up with an approach to identify a particular page. Okay, so once you have identified a particular page based on the request parameter, then you will read all the components which are available on that particular page, and you will convert that component into JSON format and then expose that as a API. So we'll have to write a servlet to do all this. Okay, so we'll have to code all those things in AEM and we'll expose all these APIs. Okay, so similarly, all this e-commerce from the commerce platform also will expose the services, and from the loyalty also will expose the services. So if we have certain legacy systems which are monolith, right, and if we don't have any services exposed, so then we'll have to convert those monolith applications into service based architectures, and we'll have to expose all those services into the integration layer. Okay, so this is the first step which we have to do. So all the legacy platforms and all the distributed systems which we have, like commerce system, CRM system, pricing system, loyalty system, all those distributed systems APIs should be exposed into the integration layer. Okay, so this is the first step which we do. So then the second step which we have is a service orchestration layer. So why we use the service orchestration layer is to complete a particular transaction. So for example, if you are placing an order, right, if you added a particular product onto the cart and we are doing the final purchase, right? So when we say make a purchase, then what should happen is for whatever product a user has ordered, right, this particular order. So for that particular product, the inventory has to be blocked first, right? So first we'll have to do a call to the inventory management system to block the inventory. Okay, so then we'll have to trigger the payment gateway, right, to make the payment. Okay, so then he will go to the payment gateway and he will make the payment. And once the payment is completed, then the response gets back to us. Then we'll have to go to the order management system and we'll have to place the order to deliver a particular product to particular address, right? So all the this is a transaction, and what are involved here is distributed systems, right? For example, the payment gateway is a different system, inventory management system is a different system, order management is a different application, right? So all these are different application, and we'll have to do an orchestration between these different applications. Like for example, if the if we, when the order is placed, first we are blocking the inventory, right? So the inventory is blocked here, then we'll have to set certain status here. So then it goes to the payment gateway. And what if the payment has failed, right? So then we'll have to come back to the inventory management system and we will have to release that particular inventory, right? Whatever we have blocked, we'll have to release it, right? So we'll have to consider all those cases. So what is the workflows? What are the different workflows we have to complete a particular process? We'll have to document those and we'll have to orchestrate those. So that is the service orchestration layer which we have here. So then on top of this service orchestration, we will have the front-end assembly layer. So what are we doing as part of this front-end assembly? Let's see one example. Okay, if we go to the Amazon site, okay, so for example, this is the Amazon site which we are taking, and I have landed onto the electronics section. Okay, so wherein we have the smartphones section, right? So this is the landing page. Okay, so if we take an example of the landing page, so all this content could be coming from a content management system like AEM, right? So we could configure all these sections in AEM. Okay, and so if we have to show this particular thing in the website, so if we go back to our architecture, let us suppose our website is based on the Angular or React, right? So then this Angular application should know like which page to call in AEM, right? If it has to show this landing page in the Angular application, then which page in AEM it has to call to get all this content in a JSON format. Okay, and once it gets in the JSON format, then Angular does all the rendering part to render that particular content like this. So to do all this, one thing is this web application should know which page it has to call, right? So there has to be a mapping between the Angular routes to the page structure in AEM. And based on the Angular route, it has to call the appropriate page and get the JSON format. right? So this part will be handled in the front end assembly layer. So the mapping between this Angular or React routes to the AEM routes will be managed here, and the request response will be handled in this front end assembly layer. And this is also a server side layer. Okay, this is also at the server end. Okay, and this would give the content which has to be rendered on a particular route or on a particular page in the front end. So all that data required to render that particular page will be supplied by the front end assembly. Okay, so now since this is landing page, all the content, most of this content would be coming from the AEM, and this is a simple use case. But if we go to this product detail page, right? So then all the content may not be coming from AEM. So for example, this product title, product description, and all these things will be coming from the e-commerce system. And these images, whatever we are seeing, are coming from the AEM DAM, let us suppose. And these offers could be coming from the offer management system, right? And all these different attributes again will come in from the e-commerce system. And if we come down here, so these details could be coming from AEM again, right? All these images and all this marketing content could be coming from AEM or content management system. And if we go down here, so this comparison, everything is coming from the AEM system. Okay, and if you see here, we have question and answers, right? Customer questions. So what are all the customer questions and what is the answers? So this could be coming from the CRM system, right? And the reviews also could be coming either from the commerce system or CRM system or any other external system. These questions and reviews, right? This could be coming from some external system which is not AEM, right? So now if we have to render this particular page in the UI, in the, let us suppose in this web application, then we'll have to call multiple systems, right? Multiple systems, consolidate all those APIs into one view and send it to this front end application so that this layout could be rendered, right? So this entire assembly, so what is this route which we are calling? What is the URL which we are calling here? And for that particular URL, what are the different systems which we have to, backend systems which we have to call to render that particular UI, right? So all those calls will be done, and all those JSONs will be rendered into one JSON, and then it will be sent to the front end view for that to be rendered. Okay, so this is one approach. So that is what this front end assembly layer is doing. Okay, so then this front end assembly will could be different for different channels or devices. For example, there could be one front end assembly for web and another front end assembly for mobile, because the content which we are seeing in the desktop might vary from the content which we are seeing in the mobile, right? For example, in mobile we may not show a particular data, like for example these ones, due to the space limitations, right? We may not want to show some things in mobile, right? So because of those things, because of that presentation differences between the web to the mobile, we might have different front-end assemblies for web and mobile. And in similar way, we might have a different front-end assembly for chatbots. Like for example, if we are using WhatsApp, in the WhatsApp you might say list all products. Then you will have to call the e-commerce system and list all the products, right? Or you will have to call the AEM system to identify what are the top products which marketing team has authored and show those products. Right? From there, user can drill down different landing pages, and from there he can search for the product and ultimately purchase the product also using chatbots, right? So the front end assembly for the chatbots could be different when compared to the web. And if you take the voice assistants also, the JSON data which we are serving for the voice assistant could be quite different from other devices, right? And even the presentation layer would differ, right? The chatbot presentation layer could differ from web versus mobile. Even voice assistant, right? this JSON, whatever we are doing, we are getting, we'll have to convert it into this presentation layer ultimately, and you'll have to present it to the user, right, in that particular format. So this is the advantage of the microservices and headless format, that you would ultimately get a JSON based on the screen which you are seeing. Okay, the screen reference which you have, or the context which you have, based on that context, what all data you'll have to get from the different backend system, you will collate it into one view and you will serve it. Okay, so you will have an omni-channel experience in this view. So based on this, you will serve the content to the users, and you will take the inputs from him, like making a purchase or raising a service request, and you will orchestrate those APIs using different distributed systems. Okay, so this is the advantage of microservices based architecture, and this is how AEM would fit as a headless CMS into the microservices based architecture. Please subscribe to my channel if you are liking my videos. That's it for today. Jai Hind.